Welcome to Built to Last, the podcast where entrepreneurs share real stories about the triumphs and challenges of building enduring success. Hosted by Colby Jardine and Levi Lawrence.
Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Built to Last. We're hoping to have really interesting conversations that are that divide of personal and professional. And, it's a messy thing, and I don't believe in the word like balance. And I actually have never met our guest today, Gina. But Colby has, I believe. So we're not going to do a full intro like we never do. But Colby, maybe give us a little bit of context of how we got here today before we dive in.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for joining us, Gina. It's a pleasure.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's always an honor.
I met Gina at the entrepreneur organization EO Atlantic retreat. There we go. It's hard. It doesn't sound as good the other way. So we were at the EO Atlantic retreat in Fox Harbor, and my friend Martin Balcom, he was heading up that event, and he wanted to bring in the best speakers, and he was really talking you up. And I was excited to see what you were going to talk about. And I had so many questions leaving your talk that I was like, we're going to do a podcast on this. And I'm going to get to selfishly ask all the questions I want. And
Perfect.
And my fiance read your book, absolutely loved it. It came at a very timely, in a timely spot in her life, and got a lot of value from it. So I'll let you introduce yourself, and let's get going.
Really? Okay. Here, let's just start with this. I help people intersect mind and matter, right? So my specialty is helping that spark that everybody knows they have, which isn't material, come to life through their actual life. So I help people change faster and with less effort using ancient tools, modern tools, and anything I can get my hands on, because I'm a systemsaholic. So let's just leave it there, and we'll jump off from there.
Great. Systemsaholic. It sounds like you're more, from what I'm hearing, you're more focused on the person. We're like in our profession, like we're human centric, but we're working on the companies and the organizations.
Well, it's again, I'm a systemsaholic. Yeah. So I have an undergrad in engineering. I have a graduate degree in the philosophy of science and religion. And I'm heading to Oxford in the fall to do a PhD in neurotheology. So, what's up with that?
Neurotheology.
Yeah. So what I'm doing, though, it makes complete sense to me, because science and religion, if we just use those giant terms, are systems, right? They're systemized ways of thinking and looking at reality and trying to explain it. And everybody thinks they're separate. And in my reality, it's all the same. It's just different languages, different perspectives. And therefore, it looks totally different. Well, people are no different. They look different. It seems like we're different people. You got a meat suit, I got a meat suit. You're in Fredericton, I'm in Toronto. It feels different. But it's actually all the same, and it's the sameness that makes us able to optimize, because the machine is the same, right? So one to many. So you guys work with groups, I work with one. But I also work in groups, and group dynamic is something that is easy to explain. So what I am is I look for what the system is instead of what the, 3D reality presents, and then the pattern emerges. So there's always a pattern, always.
Mm. How did you did you fall into this interest? How did this?
Well, I was going to say the same thing, because I see, if LinkedIn is true, there's a little bit of a corporate citizen and engineering education, and then there's self-help book.
Total batshit crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's me in a nutshell. No, when I was 10, I asked my parents for ESP school lessons for my birthday, and they all laughed at me. But I remember I remember asking, what do you want for your birthday? You're turning 10, it's kind of a big deal. I was like, I want to go to ESP school. And they were like, what the hell is that? Right? I think I must have read about it in a book, or I remember this book about twins and psychic, and I don't know. I remember I read a lot as a kid, and there was these, and I just thought, I want to know how to do that. So I want to go to, there must be an ESP school. There was not.
Yet.
Right? And so then, whatever, I kind of, as with anything in your life, that gets buried and you move on. And then I found myself, I'm pretty good at math and science, and it was the 80s, there was no internet. And so what's a girl to do, but especially a contrarian like me, but study something that she shouldn't study because, not a lot of girls do it. So that was that. It was, so that's how I picked engineering. I was good at math and science, and I didn't want to be a chemistry teacher, right? Like, F you. I tried out for the Canadian chemistry team. I did not make it. And in
I didn't
fact,
know there was one.
Oh, neither did I. But when I was in grade 13, my teacher encouraged me to try out, and I was like, "Oh, you mean I can go to the Olympics for something? Like I'm on board, right?" So I went to the tryout. It was at the University of Toronto. I'm from Windsor, and so there I was, like, wow, right? I was at Trinity College, U of T, like, oh my God, and I didn't even get past the first question, and I was the best chemistry student in Essex County, right?
Wow.
So yeah, it was also interesting to note that I was one of a very few women. There were very few women at this particular endeavor. And, I could tell, I was like, well, I don't belong here. Like, I am out of my league. So I went to study engineering, and that was fine. Engineering, I'm not particularly, like, people always say, you're an engineer. Well, how does this work? I have no idea. But I'm really good at cracking a system. So I figured out how to succeed in it, right? And so I couldn't explain the, Bernoulli principle anymore, despite the fact that I'm a chemical engineer and it's sort of the foundation. But I could do really well in school because I could optimize the system of learning and succeeding. And then I went to work for P&G because, well, I don't know, what else do you do? Like, I didn't think I wasn't doing this on purpose. And when I started working, and it's the greatest education I ever got working there. But while I was working there, again, I was like, I don't belong here. And so I lasted about 3 years, which was miraculous. And in hindsight, they were managing me perfectly. Like, when I started to learn human systems, I was like, I can only point to my own experience of them knowing me better than I knew myself when I was 20. And they managed 3 years out of me when I should have been there for about 5 minutes.
Wow.
And then I went to Molson to be the first brand manager woman, which was a whole other, interesting experience. But what was shocking to me was it wasn't better. So the grass was in fact not greener. And so I didn't last. They didn't manage me as a person, so I didn't last very long, a couple more years. But I'm really grateful for all of that because I left. In order to leave to do something new that you didn't really plan to do, it has to be awful. It has to be worse to go backwards. So I'm so grateful that it was bad enough that I just I'm out, and that's when I started my first business. But it wasn't based on any grand vision. It was really just running out the door. And people are like, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to probably teach businesses how to do what I was taught to do at P&G, which turns out I probably should have started a coaching company at that point because I'd be pretty wealthy right now. But it wasn't a thing. There was no such thing as business coaching in the 1990s. Yeah. Coaching was for sport. But I held 5 Canadian coaching certifications by the age of 16, 17. Oh, wow. So I already knew what I was going to do, but it wasn't a clear career yet. Right. So I was coaching gymnastics, diving, soccer, basketball, volleyball. I was reffing in university. I made great money reffing men's basketball because it paid more than women's. So I already knew what I was going to do, but I just didn't know it was a thing. So there I was doing business consulting, I was coaching in the 90s, but it wasn't a thing. So
I'm always curious about that leap. The word leap means different things to different people, but that decision of, you had a job, say Molson, and then did you have the idea and started while you were there, or you left and then, okay, what the hell are we going to do?
If you can imagine someone leaping off a cliff, and then going, now what do I do? grabbing, and then grabbing something on the way out. It felt like that because, and my grandfather legit 100% cried when I quit because they had come from the Eastern Bloc, risked their lives with their 3 children. Imagine first of all, imagine being 27 and having 3 children under the age of 6. And then imagine thinking, you know what, let's leave our super wealthy, super, privileged life and get ourselves to Canada because we think it's that bad, because it's going to be that much better for our family over there. And then building a life and doing what you do, not speaking the language, whatever. And then your ungrateful, insane granddaughter, less than 2 generations, right? Just wins the golden ticket and then bails on it. So he cried 100%. Wow. I cried a lot too, but his was for a different reason.
Sure.
So because a lot of people how do I word this? I talk to a lot of people who aren't necessarily in these peer groups where you can have a little bit more real talk.
Yeah.
And they romanticize that leap and grit and the start. And the idea of that 20 or 25 year overnight success, and don't realize the
crushed it.
So, because if you look online, you have a lot of success and you have a lot of optically optimized things. And I was just like, what was that first few years like? Like, what was that? Because I bet it wasn't a leap into a pad that stayed stable.
No, it was insane. But, I always say to people, and I probably may have said this, Colby, I can't remember. I talk like this sometimes. Everybody wants caterpillar, butterfly, but nobody's willing to recognize the caterpillar goes through complete 100% destructive goo. So the caterpillar liquefies before it can be rearranged into a butterfly. Now, I've never been in a cocoon, but I can only infer that is uncomfortable. It's kind of like a chicken and an egg. I don't know, but based on my observation of nature, it's not always nonviolent. You know what I mean? Mm. So when I left, it was so bad. Now imagine being in your 20s again, okay? Or for those of you listening, maybe you are now. And so your brain's not even completely fully formed. And it's shit. That's it. It's victim shit. It's just shit. I can't do this anymore. Nobody understands me. I'm working too hard. I'm not getting paid enough. This is bullshit. But in hindsight, that rejection of the values of whatever was going on there, it's what gives you the courage to jump, right? Mm-hmm. So I distinctly remember the day because I was bawling. There was snot involved. I was like, I can't do this anymore. All right, and I'm just going to quit. And my husband was like, quit. And I was like, really? He's like, just quit. We'll be fine. We'll figure it out. And I was like, okay. So I quit. And my boss, so what are you going to do? I don't know. And I remember going down to the library because there's no internet. Okay, there is, but it's terrible. There's internet, but it's not what it is today. So I went to the library to figure out how to start a business. And I started a sole proprietorship. I don't know what the hell these things were. And it was called Brighter Ideas. And I got a phone number and I went to a business. I knew people who own businesses. And I went and pitched, it's coaching. It was coaching. I'll help you get your business plan shit together. And the first pitch I was doing, I'll never forget it because I had calculated my salary, given myself a raise, and I was down, I don't know, $150 an hour or something. And so I was meeting with my girlfriend for a little pep talk before the pitch, and she was like, what are you going to charge? And I said $150 an hour. She's like, oh, no, absolutely not, double it. And I was like, are you on cocaine?
Right.
$300 an hour. That's triple my current salary. You know what I mean? Whatever it was. She was like, A, you're not going to be working 40 hours a week. B, there's going to be time in between clients. And C, you're worth it. You come from P&G. And I was like, all right, sure. So I went into the thing and pitch. And the person's like, okay. And they're writing notes, whatever. And she goes, okay, well, how much do you charge? And I was like, $300 an hour. And she goes, okay, great. And are you in a contract right now or can you start on Monday? And I was like, no, I can start Monday. And I came home and she was like, okay, great. I'll get the paperwork together, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, what the fuck just happened? Right. So I went home. My husband was like, what happened? I'm like, I got it. He's like, great. Why do you look so forlorn? And I was like, because she didn't even bat an eyelash. And he's like, oh, the 150 was no problem. I'm like, no, I told her 300. She still didn't bat an eyelash. And now I'm wondering what I left on the table. Right. And so
Right.
that is not graceful. Right? So it was an immediate lesson in your worth is. So here's a quote. People will think about you what you think they'll think about you.
I'm going to need that one more time.
Yeah, one more time.
People will think about you what you expect them to think about you. You're projecting it. They're picking it up. And so, your worth is kind of arbitrary. How much is art worth? I don't know. What someone will pay for it. Well, how much is coaching worth? Well, I don't know. I mean, what's Ted Lasso worth? Like what's it worth? Well, it's worth what people will pay to get what it's doing. Mm-hmm. Right? So
yeah.
I was trained at P&G. Now I just thought it was a hard ass place to work that worked people hard and trained us like crazy and over prepared us for everything and gave us responsibility way outside of our, band. But in hindsight, it was a brilliant place. And when I started to say to people, how do you measure it? And they were like, measure what? I'm like, oh my God, right? I didn't know I knew things till I was out there going, these people don't know anything.
Right.
And what's worse, they don't believe. So that's when I started to realize, ooh, there's like a belief thing going on here. Mm-hmm. It's not just the numbers, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know that, I've helped a lot of small businesses back in the day kind of get going. But so I come from poor dairy farmers, and I come from like chef in hospitality, food and beverage professional for 10 years, have a degree in whatever. But at the end of the day, when I started my first business, I had never really dealt with real money. And so the idea of that first $3,000 loan, that first $8,000, that first week of making a couple $1,000s revenue, the first time I raised investment was $80,000. And I was like burning everything to so worried about the amounts. And in hindsight, like that business ended up failing 8 years later. And I look back at a lot of the decisions where I just didn't understand and I was playing a different game. And if I had just properly financed and understood money better and beliefs around money, a lot of beliefs around money, because I had never been exposed to people or businesses that operated with money as a tool. Right. It was a constraint. And like, it's just like
belief,
major belief. And like, I have a tattoo on my leg that says there's no mission without margin. And it's like, the only way to make better things happen is to make more money doing better things. And like all those
you have that
beliefs
tattooed on your leg? That's like a book.
Well, no, the first one, the no mission without margin.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
And
it wraps around your ankle. Yeah, but like hindsight's always 20/20. But you asked me, was it, I make it up as I go along. People hate that, but it does come like what I may lack in formal understanding of the things you just spoke about, right? I don't know a lot about that. I never did. I went to the library to learn how to start a business. I surrounded myself with people who knew, and I always believed it would work out if I just paid attention to what the next step was. So that's faith, but it wasn't. I didn't believe in some guy sitting in a chair that was going to like direct my life. What I believed in was my own ability to pay attention and adapt to the circumstances, knowing that even if it wasn't the way I planned it, I would figure out how to make it work. Right? And maybe that comes from having grandparents who dodged a bullet or two, and had to react in ways that I don't think I would have expected myself to be able to do in my 20s. But they had to deal with things that we couldn't even dream about. Can you imagine bribing a guard on a train to let you off between Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia and Austria and not getting shot in the back? Shame on you for not knowing how to finance a business properly. Like, what the hell? So there's this in our DNA is like this potential, but it has to be activated, and the only thing that usually activates it is failure and stress.
Right.
I could curl 1 pound weights for the rest of my life. It's not going to build a single muscle fiber.
Right.
It's only until you rip, when you actually learn what muscle building is, it's like muscle destroying and rebuilding.
Yeah.
Well,
That big failure of that business, like, there's no reason I would be doing what I've been doing for the last 10 years without that.
right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wish it upon anybody, but at the same time, those things are necessary.
But so we call them failures, and my first book was called The Secret of Successful Failing. And at one point, I was saying, why do we act like failure is an F word, right? Like, why do we have such an ab reaction to it? The word failure means you didn't get what you planned to get. So by that definition, my extremely illustrious career with P&G and like my very important career was a complete failure, because it failed to be the thing that I did. It failed. It wasn't bad, but it was a failure, and it was such a good it was like the best failure ever, so that I could have the guts to do the next thing. So is that really a failure? But it was a failure. I mean, absolute disaster in those years. For the longest time after those years, I was like, what a waste of years. I didn't really appreciate it for a while, but yeah, necessity is the mother of invention. So I didn't have a choice. So I had to put myself out there, because I didn't feel comfortable trying to live off my husband's paltry little salary at the time. We were in our 20s. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So knowing what you know now, do you ever, how do you assess your own beliefs on a regular basis?
I don't know what that means.
So do you, because, we may create new habits, life may change.
Yeah.
And how do you check in with yourself to like analyze, like, oh, is this a new belief that I have?
Oh yeah. So here is very easy. So, and you can borrow this if you want. So just look in your life and look where it's on fire and shit is raining down from the sky. And that's generally a place where your beliefs and your operating system isn't working anymore. No, seriously. So like, I always, maybe I did this in the audience. I don't know. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It's like, look, think about putting on your own jeans, right? And most people put on their own jeans. And so I'll go pick someone from the audience. I'll go, did you put on your own jeans today? Yeah. Okay, what leg did you put in first? Like, what? I'm like, left or right? They're like, I don't know. My right, I guess. I go, you put your right leg in every day first. Why do you think you do that? They're like, I don't know, because I'm right-handed. Like, no, it's because the person who dressed you tried to put your left leg in one day, and they smacked your right leg because they were like, no, give me this leg. They were ready for the right leg, not the left leg. And so that's how you ended up being a right-legged pants putter on her. And the reason I'm using this example is because if you look at the habits in your life, they're kind of you always brush your teeth the same. You always do these things and they work. And so as long as they work, we don't bother to change them. It's only when we realize they're not working. So there I was, right leg pants putter on her my whole life. And then I sprained my left foot playing volleyball in university. Like my left ankle just destroyed it. Crutches in the middle of winter in Toronto was a disaster. And I couldn't put my pants on, because I'd only ever done it one way. And so I had to learn, it's so ridiculous, how to do it standing on the other leg. Well, I'm pleased to announce that 40 years later or whatever, I can put my pants on in either leg, depends on the mood of the day. But the only reason I ever even attacked that pattern is because it was a disaster when I couldn't do it. And so wherever you have disaster in your life, sure, and I've done it, you can lie on the ground, why is this happening to me? Or you can go, something in this program is old and doesn't work in the environment that I'm in or the goals that I've set for myself. Michael Beckwith says humans change for two reasons. Pain pushes until vision pulls.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I know. So I live like that. And then so my life's a disaster sometimes. People are like, oh, you must have a perfect life. I'm like, you don't understand what I teach if you think I have a perfect life.
Right. Right. And tell me a little bit about when you got started with this, working on beliefs. Like what was that first, few clients like, or companies that you worked with? Like How did you start to work on that with people? Like, how did you start to piece it together so it could be delivered?
See, this is where it goes further back. It goes back to like so when I was a teenager, I was already doing it. Right? Do you know you are talking to the rookie lifeguard of the year from Windsor, Ontario, who won an award for teaching methods to get any kid to dive. That was I could teach any kid, whether they could swim or not, to dive in one summer. And I was 17. Now, seriously, we could be having the entire call about that. Now, why am I not a teacher or a lifeguard? Well, because that's not a real job. I swear to God. And so when I was going into university, they were like, well, you can't be a lifeguard forever. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? And they're like, well, it doesn't pay very well. And my mom worked at Chrysler. And I was like, well, if I work in the factory, I can make like 3 times the amount of money that I made as a lifeguard. And so I did that. So I was also the star of Flashdance. So I welded cars for 2 summers. Well, it's a great way to know what you don't want to do. And then when I got into university, I couldn't go be a lifeguard. So now what do? I'm near the top of my class. I'm in the student council, everything, whatever. It's just who I am. Still teaching people how to do stuff, by the way. What did I say? 5 coaching certifications. I was tutoring in university. I was tutoring high school students. And so then there were job interviews. This is a true story. 4th year. I went to Fort Saskatchewan, Alberta to interview to be a chemical engineer, like a full-on oil chemical engineer. Went back to Toronto. I changed my suitcase. I flew to New York City to be an investment banker. I didn't even know what that was. I was an engineer. I didn't even know what it meant. And I was in the final round of interviews for a very big investment bank. Then I came back to Toronto, and then I had an interview with P&G. And this was in 3 days. And so my professors were like, what do you want to be? I'm like, I don't even know what half these things are. So that's how I ended up at P&G. It was like the three little bears. What do you call it? The Goldilocks? Like it was like, no, too, not enough, too much, just right. And that's how I ended up there. And that was a real job. But look where I ended up. I ended up doing what I did when I was 14, 15. So I already knew, and I have this tool I use with my private clients, because I don't just work with in fact, I don't work with very many private individuals. But I have this tool, and the tool is about finding your purpose and drive. And one of the things we do is we go back and we re-examine the patterns of life, right? So what were you doing when it was awesome? When you were 7, when it was awesome, what were you doing? Well, I was organizing skating showcases because we had a really big yard, and my dad used to make us an ice rink. And my friends were really good skaters, so we would do a skating showcase so they could showcase their skating, and we would raise money for Ronald McDonald House, and I was 8. So it's always this sort of same greatness, shine. I didn't know it was a thing. And even when I started, I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't even know what the thing was, and then I was doing okay doing this thing. I didn't know what it was because it didn't have a name. And then my husband was a stockbroker at the time, and he was like, looks like you're having a lot of fun, whatever. So he kind of got the itch. And so he wrote this business plan that was like 25 pages long, okay? And it was like everything that you were talking about, Levi, about like thinking of everything, financing. It was going to be corporate leadership development in the wilderness, canoeing and kayaking, because that was his love from childhood, but it was also like he was a corporate guy and blah, blah, blah. Unbelievable. And it was really good. And then I was like, this is great. And he sold his book, and he was like, let's do it. So he leaped as well. And it's been 26 years, almost 27 years since he wrote that business plan. We've never delivered the program even one time. Never. And he quit his entire job for the plan that he made that we never executed, because the first time we pitched it was to the Body Shop Canada, and they loved us, but they didn't want to give us their entire company for 3 days. So they're like, we'll give you our whole company, but you got to chop it up and you got to figure out how to deliver all these deliverables without going out into the wilderness for 3 days. And we'll buy everything you have and everything. I mean, literally, they wrote we were like, oh my God. And so we started out with this humongous, ridiculous contract to do everything leadership with this company. Okay? Everything. We did these leadership games, and I did these keynote speeches, and we worked with individuals, and that basically bankrolled us for a while. And then the next pitch was to a company who really admired the Body Shop, and they were like, oh, this is so great, tell me about your clients. And we said, well, our biggest client is the Body Shop. It was our only client. I wasn't lying.
Not wrong.
Okay, so then they hired us because they really admired because remember at the time, this is still in the late 90s, early 2000s, the Body Shop was really known for its culture, which was not a thing. Just remember, culture wasn't really a thing yet. So Body Shop had insane things like daycare. And so they were really known for their groundbreaking ideas, like flexible working hours for parents, right? So we were in there, and we were their leadership trainers. So then the next company, and then we had two, and then so then that kind of snowballed, and then things whatever. So we keep that business plan as a reminder that to be an entrepreneur means to respond to the environment, not to force your will and ideas upon your unwilling customers.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
So I don't actually know, and I probably could do the research or find out, but you're here. I don't actually know what you've built is a organization, or is it the power of your own trusted advisor status, personality able to deliver? Like have you made those investments in what scale and structure look like at any point?
So yes and no. So we have a company, we call it the Greatness Group. That was the safest name because then that can be anything. And,
Sounds great.
And it's built on our value, which is greatness, right? So to reveal greatness is sort of why we get out of bed in the morning, why anybody works for us. And there are three rough pillars, and they've kind of been the same rough pillars for about 15, 17 years. So the majority of the time. So, and it's kind of a continuum. So there's Gina. She writes books. She does talks. I'm a tube. Okay, I don't take credit for any of this. My job is to clear out the debris inside the tube so the information can get through me and out to other people. So I do that through books and speaking, and I work with individual private clients curating private breakthroughs for one-on-one people, right? It's like engineering. And then there's the complete opposite end of that, which is a totally commodity, team building. Right? So corporate team building, we do corporate scavenger hunts. It's called Scavenger Hunt Anywhere. No one does more than us in the entire planet. I haven't led a scavenger hunt since I was pregnant, so 2000. So it's been a while, but we do them. And my husband runs that business that you would call a business.
Yeah, it has investments in sales and management.
It has people and, staff, and it's got a great story. Maybe you should interview him. And then in the middle, we have what we call Greatness U, as in you learning, the U of university. And so what happens there is we take our expertise in sort of the group team building, understanding of human group behavior, and we take the sort of expertise of the individual performance, and we marry them in a training platform. And so in this training platform, we run both open courses, so you register and come one seat at a time. And we also do corporate training modules that are either private or, what do you call those things? Cohort kind of stuff. And it just depends on what they want to learn, right? And so we curate it. We also have boxed courses, and sometimes parts of our business are bigger than others. And that was no more apparent than 2020, 2021, and 2022. So the entire business was flattened in one day, but certain elements that I just explained emerged faster than others. Yeah. So the scavenger hunts, it's been 5 years now? The scavenger hunts are just coming back to steam.
Yeah, no doubt.
So they got flattened. So then Andrew worked more on my stuff because he's like, people want this more right now. So, so scale, I don't know, it's hard to say really.
Well, to be honest, it's great because I've worked with a lot of people who are like the author, the influencer, the
Yeah.
trusted advisor, the speaker as professions, and then like they don't have any of the infrastructure around them. Maybe a virtual assistant or an assistant
Right.
role or an agent. But that's like, and I went down that. I did used to do a lot of public speaking, did a
Yeah.
TEDx talk, and I always wanted to write. And then I was like, I don't really want to have a thing that if I don't get up and want to do it again, it stops.
Exactly.
But I've talked to a lot of people like that. You kind of sell yourself.
Yes.
You've built the systems, which is
We have some. Well, I am an engineer. I mean,
yeah.
in those early days when we shared an office that was tiny, we got a call, and I heard Andrew talking to the person on the call, and it was like, "Oh yeah, no, we don't really do scavenger hunts." And I was like, "We do anything right now, right?" So I was like whipping paper at his head, and he's like, "But," and he was like, I was like, and so he goes, "But you know what? Let me throw something together and I'll get back to you tomorrow." And he hangs. He's like, "What the hell are you doing?" I'm like, "We don't do scavenger hunts." I'm like, "How hard can it be? We're sitting in an office." Right? Like my parents used to do this thing in Windsor called the Challenge Cup, and it's kind of like, and then I was like the engineer. I was like, I'm pretty sure we could do it and replicate it easily. And he was like, okay. So we threw together this proposal and pitched it to this client. They rejected it, but we spent a lot of time on this proposal of like how it would work, and they rejected it. But then he turned to me and said, I think I can sell this. And I went, all right.
So funny because Colby and I didn't found companies at the same time. We merged later on, like
Right.
3 years ago. And I don't even know if you, I don't think you would have participated in these, Colby, but in the 2020, 2021 years, a lot of what we did was we helped companies use the internet effectively or use
Yeah,
technology.
sure.
And during COVID, we were doing a lot of different stuff, but it shifted very quickly to help turn their in-person contact points online. Trade shows, AGMs, events,
Great.
conferences.
Could have used you, although
So,
nobody
so
wanted
we
to do
had
it
a number
online.
of people, and I actually 3 times in a row did large team building and conferences
Yeah,
or
yeah.
peer membership, and I built the online scavenger hunt experience just from like Google searches. And so it was really rough because it was like a last minute build, but it was an
Yeah,
Excel sheet with all the tasks and it was shared. So every group had their own Excel sheet
yeah,
and
yeah,
somebody
yeah.
else was joined in to score, but they
Too
had to
bad
use
we.
the internet. So they had to edit
Right.
an image
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Canva
yeah,
and they
yeah.
had to go find a specific geography place on the planet and take a screenshot. I think there was all this like really interesting.
Well, we
It was
do
like,
that all the time, but we have an app.
yeah, well, I made it up on the go, but it was like,
No, of
yeah, just
course.
fake it till you
Well, that's what
figure it out.
we did, and the problem became because it's team building. After the first sort of 2 weeks to flatten the curve turned into 6 months, then it was really hard to pitch. Hey, you're online all day every day. Do you want to also do team building online every day? Like then people were like, no. And so I said, just let it die because I got more calls to do private breakthroughs. So I try to limit the number of private breakthroughs that I design because they take a lot of time and then I can't do anything else. And so I try to keep it to like a dozen a year. It's just a random number I picked a long time ago. And it was like a waterfall of requests because in a crisis, right, one of the things that I can help people do is get out of the story of the crisis because a crisis in my model of reality is an opportunity for rapid step change. Okay, so the smart ones, and I cannot believe, like if I think back to what we were doing given the constraints of where we were living, I don't know. So it saved us, and a number of things saved us. Years ago I took I just kind of fell into things as they went. So I wrote a book, Successful Failing, and The Secret of Successful Failing, and somebody read it, and you were talking about, what did you say? You didn't say 10,000 hours, you said 25 years, but it's, when you're doing your 10,000 hours, it's not so glamorous. So I'm speaking in a church basement somewhere on this book, and this woman comes up to me and goes, "You've written a really good book about NLP." And I was like, "What?" She said, your book, it's about NLP. I'm like, "What the hell's NLP?" And she said, "Neuro-linguistic programming." I said, "I don't know what that is." She goes, "Oh, come on." She said, "Tony Robbins." I'm like, "Oh, I know who he is, but not really. Like, I'm not familiar with what NLP is." She goes, "Give me a break. Are you going to pretend you invented NLP like everybody else does and rebrands it?" And I was like, again, I've never heard of it. So, Colby, to answer your question, that was a sign. So I went home and Googled it and ended up in a classroom very quickly thereafter. And I sat there for about 15 minutes and went, oh my God. Like it's just a systematic way of approaching the construct of the mind, which I had written about, but because I'm an engineer.
Yeah. Okay.
And so then I never intended to do more than get that info and use it, right? But Tad James was a brilliant man, and he was my teacher for a long time. And he was a brilliant man. He delivered excellent content, and he had a really good way of knowing how to provide the value that made me want to keep going, right? So there was a point where he was pitching some master trainer program. I had no interest in teaching at that level. But however he positioned it, it was like, well, you can buy this, which I wanted, or you can do this master trainer program and I'll give you this for free. And I was like, well, it's the same price. So why wouldn't I just do, so I did the master trainer program, and then I enjoyed it. So I finished it. And, whatever, I taught a few courses here and there, and it was fun to be able to say you teach this and teach coaching and teach hypnosis and shit. And then 2020 happened. Okay. And our entire business went like I'm talking, the number of contracts alone that were canceled was like $500,000, right? Just like in one day. It was just unbelievable. And we looked at each other, and I was like, nope, I do not accept this reality. So we we deleted all our social media accounts, everybody in our family. My kids were in high school-ish. One was in high school, one was going into university. Deleted all our social media, wrote all over our windows on quotes that inspired us, had happy hour, which was the hour of happiness. And so it was like, you had to have an amuse-bouche and a obviously non-alcoholic cocktail, like mocktail, and a game and a whatever. We did this every day. And you had to walk the dog together. And it was not negotiable. And I was like, we are not participating in this. We are doing this.
Wow.
And about 3 weeks into that, I get a call out of the blue from a coaching organization that I never started. And they said, our coaches are still working, but they're not traveling. So they have all this time, and I want to invest all their fees in upskilling them. Could you teach, 60, 75 coaches online, NLP? And I was like, 100%. 100%.
Wow.
Hung up the phone. And then Andrew was like, I said, well, we got to figure out how to do our course in Zoom, right? And in February of 2020, and this is, I was at an EO thing in New York, and this guy said to me, you got to put this stuff online, Gina. This is ridiculous. And I was like, it can't be done, man. You cannot teach NLP online. You need to be there face to face with the person. And then 6 weeks later, I'm like, 100%. No problem. And so we figured it out because we had
to,
right? And we delivered this course. We trained these coaches. They all learned it, and it saved our lives, literally. And then we did a whole online platform. And then after a while, I was like, I can't do this like this anymore.
Wow.
Right? Because I don't like teaching online.
Funny, it's called NLP.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Linguistic programming. It's just a model. It's just a model of the millions of models that I teach.
So I don't think I've ever shared this, at least on the podcast, but I started working with a therapist on ADD. Found a video online that just like hit me viscerally. I never got diagnosed and all that kind of stuff, but I had a lot of the symptoms, the obvious ones anyway, and I started working with this therapist on, and I didn't know what executive function was. I didn't understand. I'd never heard of it before. And so she was like asking me to describe my day and how I do things and why I do things a certain way. And she kind of stopped me and she goes, you've kind of figured out executive function without knowing what it is. And she walked me through, because she was actually taking a course on executive function at the same time she was working with me. And she read off, I obviously created it with duct tape and bubble gum, but I had to create something, and I didn't even realize I did it. And then from there on, I'm like, okay, I need to dive into this. But it's just...
You ended up in it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's fascinating and also very empowering to know that.
Well, you were functioning with what you had,
Yeah,
right? We're pretty good at like fashioning a MacGyver. Like we're good at it, but if we don't need it, we don't get good at, like we don't get good. So what causes you to have to do that? Adversity,
yeah, survival.
right? Like there's an amazing video on the internet that I use in my talks sometimes, of a guy called Nick Vujicic. I don't know if you know who he is. He's an Australian man. He has no arms and no legs,
Oh, yes.
and you know he leads a better life than most people that I know that have arms and legs.
Right.
He's certainly a better golfer than I am, and he's a better diver than I am, and I taught diving, and so, but he had to, because it was either that or suffer 80 years or whatever, 100 years of whatever. And so when you hear him talk, he's like, it should be impossible for me to do this if I fall down, but it's not. Why? Because I never gave up. That's his general story, and he usually speaks to kids, and usually a lot in Australia, like, holy crap, talk about a purpose. So when you have to overcome the adversity, you think it's nothing because it's just you. It's like, this is just my life. I'm not doing anything special. But what you don't realize is that particular system that you've created is either directly helpful to somebody in your same situation or generally helpful in its design, your approach or your attitude or whatever. But we don't think of that. So I don't think of myself as anything until someone says, I can't believe you do it like that. I've never even thought of it. I'm like,
Right.
what? Right? So when I do a breakthrough with somebody, really what I'm doing is deconstructing how they construct reality. Because if you see above my head on the chalkboard, do you see the 126? This is you've seen this on my talk, because it's a cornerstone of every talk I give, which is reality, the quantum field, reality, the field, this, whatever you want to call it, the universe. It's comprised of millions, billions, possibly trillions of bits of random information, right? In 1954, Carl Pribben and his clan, they measured 2 million bits of, stimuli. But the brain can't process it. We can't take in all the information. So we take it in through our 5 senses, but the capacity is about 126 bits per second. So right out of the gate, you're looking at a data loss of 99.994% of all that's possible before you even open your eyes, right? So in order for your brain to do its executive functioning, in order for your body to move through space, it can only organize the information that it can handle. So it takes 126 bits, and then it does shit with them, and you move around and you do your things and you go to work and you introduce yourself or whatever you do. And then you act like that's a real constraint. No, it was arbitrary. But what's real is the minute it gets inside your mind, the minute you get rid of the rest of the information, that's all you can work with. That's it. So when I learned this fact, I was like, so if you could change the information you brought in, you could literally do anything. So then my entire life has been about determining how we change how we process information. And there's, sure, some of our cutting edge science is the answer, but hey, some of the answer is hidden in some ancient scriptures too. And that's why I do both, because I'm not the first person to realize this. I may be the first person to language it the way I language it, but it's been known that there's a massive data loss the minute it gets into our meat suit, and then that constrains us. So we're not the constraint, but the filtering is the constraint. Well, I'm in charge of the filter, so this is great news. So when I do a breakthrough with someone, all I do is I have a systematic way of deducing what information they're using, and I just change it. And I don't change it by much. and reality changes. Like, that's why it's called a breakthrough, because it's like,
Can you give me an example of changing information?
well, so for example, it's very practical. So there are three components of the mind, right? Mental, emotional, and physical, like physiological. So beliefs, right, which you think are thoughts, and they are, but their cost to you is the negative emotions or the limiting factor that goes with them. So, some belief like, I can't do it because I'm a woman. I can't do it because I'm a whatever. I'm poor, whatever, like just shit like that. I'm not good enough. Like, that's generalized to the basic ones. I'm not good enough. I won't be loved, because that everybody has those, right? So the more attention you give to that as being true, the more it lives inside your body as like a gate check, right? So no, you can't. If you believe this, you can't believe that. It's not. You can't do both. So I have techniques that I use that eliminate generalized negative emotions. So a lot of times we generalize, and our negative emotions are patterns. They're patterns of non-learning, right? So I have techniques that allow us to resolve that. And I don't just mean metaphorically, I mean neurologically. And I have techniques to resolve limiting beliefs. Well, once you get rid of negative emotions and limiting beliefs, then what you need to do is just clean up any other bullshit programming that's not working. And then you've got like a clean garden bed, finally. And then you plant. So I also am trained in techniques that, like hypnosis and things like that. So now you can plant the seeds, and now they'll grow unimpeded because the garbage that was in the way isn't preventing them from growing. And so rapid results ensue because your mind creates reality. So if I remove the belief, I'm not good enough or smart enough, what would be possible? And I don't remove it, you remove it. I just walk you through the techniques. But if you no longer had that belief, what would be possible? And so how would Gina, how do I know which belief to work on? Well, where's your life blowing up? Because that's generally where the belief is old, right? And I always like to normalize this part when I say this to people, because when you created the programs that you're currently running, they were brilliant. When you were 6 and 5 and 3 and 2 and 1 and 4 and 14, at the time, they were exactly what you said, executive function. They were brilliant for the circumstances. You were like, you figured out how to get out of there intact. But it's not appropriate 30 years later to be using the same program to respond to it'd be like when I worked at P&G, the internet and computers were just becoming tools. And, so remember when Office, like Microsoft would come out with Microsoft 98 or whatever and be like big launch party, and like people would line up to buy software. But I remember because P&G, our IT guys were kind of on the ball, and so they would always get it, and then they would send us things to be cocky assholes, and I'd get a Word document and I couldn't open it. In 1995, I could, if I didn't have Windows 95, I was running the old shit, I couldn't open the stupid document. Okay, so the solution, so there's the problem. The problem is I can't open the document. So Gina, where's your problem? Right there. Okay, well, what's the solution? Blame the guy who sent it. Okay, that's what most people do, right? Or blame the company, or throw the computer out the window, or turn it off and on 100 times. No, the solution is to go down to the store and buy a new program. Well, which program? CorelDRAW? No. Go buy Microsoft 95, because that's what you need to open that guy's thing. Okay. So then I run it. Well, my life changes. I get 95. Wow! It is the best cutting edge program of the day. Now, can you imagine if I said to you right now, because of that experience, guys, I still use Microsoft Office 95. Because bar none, it is the best.
Right.
Well, that's what people are doing with their programs.
Well, I can attest to that, because you're actually refreshing my memory on why I even went down the rabbit hole of researching ADD. And it was because, and I think I may have even said this to you, Levi, I felt like whatever I was doing today wouldn't help me any further from where I want to go as a person, and working with others. And that was like extraordinarily frustrating because I didn't know where to look. And
totally.
It was just a YouTube rabbit hole that brought me to this video of a doctor speaking at a conference that just clicked. Actually, that was in December. I saw you speak in October. which is interesting. Yeah.
No, it's not interesting. It is interesting. But what you're getting is as you start to rearrange what your filters are filtering, the information that's been there the whole time. It's been there. It didn't just appear, right? It was there the whole time, but it's like a radio. Like I always try to take this to people and go, look, you guys are hopefully young enough to remember radios, right? So like
I remember Windows 95.
right. Okay, good. So there you are.
I'm almost 10 years older than Colby.
Okay, perfect. So there you are with the radio, trying to get the perfect, especially if it was an analog dial, right? Be like, and you try to get it right there, even though it was 92.3. It wasn't exactly 92.3. It was like whatever, and you're running around your house with the antenna. So there you are, and you get it, and the music comes through perfectly. Well, the music was there the whole time. But the device needed to get lined up to that particular music. So now if you then are on, I don't know, let's call it a classical music station, but then, that's where your mom said it or whatever, and then you really wanted to listen to some hard rock. If you walk in and turn on the radio and it's playing classical music, this is what people do. They go, why isn't this playing hard rock? I don't understand. I'm a good person. Well, you got to put it on the hard rock station. Well, what's that? I don't know. Like, you got to find it. Okay, let's say it's 102.1. Okay, so you go to 102.1, and then you hit it exactly, and there's AC/DC. Well, it was there the whole time. Radios don't sit there and wait. Somebody just tuned in, start broadcasting. Like, that's not how it works. They're constantly broadcasting the information, and the device enables you to bring the information into reality. Well, okay, that's a system. I just go, your meat suit's a device. You're a device. You're an electromagnetic device. You filter information, you receive it, and you send it. It's all there. You get what you're looking for. If you don't like what you're looking at, look elsewhere.
This might be a bit of an odd way to describe this, but I have this fear. I guess people call it FOMO, fear of missing out. Sure. But let's not call it like, somebody's vacation and wherever. I'm fearful, like similar to you might be walking through the forest and there's an animal right there and you would have never known you walked by it. That is the example of information that I'm so close to but walk by and miss that click. It's just this constant fear that that something's sitting right in front of me and I just missed it.
It is. Always. And so that's like important to know. I would say that the solution to that is to just be present. What the hell does that mean, Gina? People say that shit all the time. Well, if you're burdened by negative emotions and these limiting beliefs that come from 95, then you're not living in the moment, you're living in the past. And if you're just constantly thinking about your next month, your next goal, your whatever, you're not living in the moment, you're living in the future. And neither of those places exist. The only time you have is what's ever happening to you right now. And I have these do I have one in my desk? I have these cards that this brilliant marketing company made for me. And I might have given you one at some point.
I didn't get I got a book.
Because I usually write on them. They're like just cards, right? And they have different quotes on them. And this one says, the answers that we seek are often right in front of us. But another one of the quotes of mine that she threw on there was, pay attention to what gets your attention. And because it's getting your attention because it's based on your desires and values and whatever. And it doesn't get my attention. It gets yours. And so if you do that, you probably won't miss the bunny in the forest.
Right.
You know what I mean? But would you be sad if you missed a badger in the forest? Would you be sad if you missed a rattlesnake in the forest? I don't know if I'd mind.
Yeah.
Right? You find out afterwards there was a killer whatever in the forest. Really?
Sometimes ignorance is bliss.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But fear of missing out, that's a, I mean, I don't know that fear is a particularly productive emotion, but that's a great way to ensure that you're constantly living and not living.
Yeah.
I'm curious what made you decide around the PhD that's coming up you mentioned earlier, and I guess for me is it the exploration, discovery, trying something new and expanding growth, etc., or is there an intentional goal?
So when I did my master, I'm a lifelong learner, and that's all I do. I have drawers full of books. I have bookshelves full of books. I'm a reader, a learner, in information. So you have a fear of missing out. I have a fear of not getting all 2 million, billion, trillion bits of information. So when I did a master's in philosophy of science and religion, I just wanted to see if I could argue at the level of academia for the things that I thought were real, true, whatever. And I did okay. I was pretty good at it. I did that in Edinburgh, in Scotland. And then when I was graduating, that was amazing. It was just an amazing experience. And so on the way back, we were driving back to London, and we stopped in Oxford for the day. And I'm a libraryaholic, okay? So there's a library in Oxford called the Bodleian Library, if anybody's listening, that's like the library of the world. And so I wanted to go see it. I just wanted to be in it. I wanted to go in this really, really old library of really, really ancient learning. And I got there only to discover you had to have tickets and all this crap. And I was like, oh man, right? And so then I got a ticket for like the outer vestibule, and I was trying to get into the library, and she's like, no, we don't have any more tickets for the library. I'm like, come on, somebody, like, nope. And so then I've tried to go to the security guard at the library, and he's like, I'm a student at Edinburgh. I have I have a card. He's like, no problem. Just go tomorrow and get a reading card, and you can go in the library. I'm like, I'm flying home tomorrow. So it was like this ridiculous library thing. And then we were standing there, and I said to Andrew, I'm getting into this library. And he's like, how? I'm like, I have no idea. Okay. And so all of a sudden, with bat ear hearing, I hear a cry, and maybe it was the acoustics of this hall. I hear like words like no show, I don't know, two people. I just hear like snippets of like, so I go running across the room. Did somebody not show up? Did somebody not show up for a tour? They're like, yeah, but the tour's already left. I'll go, please, I'll pay whatever. I'll pay triple. I'll pay, please, I really, and the guy was like, okay, you've been here like 4 times and you clearly really want to go. I'll take you to the tour myself. You don't have to pay. It's fine. It's already been paid for. So then Andrew and I go through, and the security guard goes, what the hell? And I go, oh, come on, man. This can't be the first time you've seen magic at the Bodleian Library. Like, this place is invented this shit. We get up to this tour, and it's just like my head's exploding. And the woman giving the tour is just an amazing character. And there are books in there that are chained to the wall. Chained. Because they're so old, they're more valuable than art. And I just said to Andrew, I have to go here. Like, I have to go here. And he was like, okay. And so then this November, I was like, all right, well, let me throw together a proposal and see what happens.
Right. Right. So this is the continuation of challenging your beliefs.
Well, I mean, I'm going to unite science and religion again at the pinnacle place of academia, if you will, where it probably be the hardest institute. Like, there will be people there that won't be so excited about what I'm doing, and I'm just gonna go and learn. And there's a lot of shit I don't know, so I'm gonna learn a lot. And then what am I gonna do with it? I don't know. Probably just come out really pretentious in my knowledge of the intersection of science and science and religion. But what I'll do is I'll use it for good,
Right.
Helping people unlock the divine code, if you will, inside of them, hopefully.
I have two different avenues that I want to go down both equally.
Okay.
I'm trying to pick which one. I'll go with the one that's more on topic to what you just said. How does religion play into your life these days?
Well, so religion is a system, usually a dogmatic system, that makes people want to crawl under their bed. Religion is the systemization of spirituality, if you will. And so not all systems get executed well, as you know. So I'm not a particularly religious person. That being said, I'm a very learned person, and I understand a lot of the systems, but I could practice any of them, and I'm not attached to any of them. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Because for me, it's not about the values level that says it's like some guy telling us what to do. But I also study at the esoteric level a lot of these systems, some of the allegorical, metaphorical, and hidden occult meanings behind some of the stuff that is written. So I'm fascinated by all of it. But I was at a party in London recently, and the guy said to me, "So do you believe in God?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean when you ask that question?" He said, "What do you mean, what do I mean?" I said, "Well, what's your definition of God? Because before I tell you if I believe in it, I have to know what you are asking me." And he said, "What do you mean? It's God. Do you believe in God?" And I was like, "No, no, no. Are you talking some guy sitting in a big judge's chair dispensing judgment? Probably not." He's like, "Yeah, I'm a recovering Roman Catholic. I don't believe in God." I was like, "Oh, okay, fair enough. You're not the only person." I said, "But what if God wasn't a guy?" And they're like, "What?" I'm like, "What if God?" And I said, "What if?" And this is not true, and I don't believe this. Just so you know, I was just trying to be a shit disturber. I said, "But what if God is like a super organized, highly complex system of information that's figured out how to regenerate itself and, make little baby versions of itself that become conscious? What if that's God?" He was like, "What?" I was like, "What? He's like a complex web of numbers that we don't even understand the complexity of the information system. But what if it's like, I don't know, just like a giant massive algorithm? Could that be God?" And he was like, "Well, that's not God." I said, "Well, how do you know? Nobody knows. But if it is, could you believe in it?" And he was like, "Maybe." Great. Bye. So, and I don't believe that. I just made that up on the spot, but I thought it was pretty clever. And it might have been the champagne, could have been the Pimm's, but I wasn't. I was more just trying to say, like, I don't know if you subscribe to the many worlds theory, then anything's possible, but not plausible.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. I think I'm going into this. I don't know jack shit, and I think that's going to be to my advantage. And I'm not doing it for any reason. That's also going to be to my advantage because I have nothing to lose.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Good point.
Yeah.
Are you going to 100% immerse in this next? Like you're not going to like do it part time while continuing to work.
No, I'm doing it full time, but I will continue to speak, and I will continue to take private clients, and I will continue to teach some courses because the courses, the semesters at Oxford are only 8 weeks, and then there's big breaks in between, so I can still work.
Yeah.
I'm speaking at EO. What the hell's the acronym? APAC? No, that was in February. MEPA. And it's like 2 days before I start. Of course. Like, of course it is. It's not next week when I have lots of time. It's 2 days before I start.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
So I'm going to keep doing that kind of stuff because I like it. But I'm going to immerse myself fully. I'm not growing my business. I'm not scaling I'm not doing any of that.
I'm excited for you.
I am too. Come visit.
Well, I have friends that just moved to the Oxford area that have been, they're working for the American Embassy.
Oh, cool.
They got placed there for the next 3 years, and they're begging for us to go over. So we were going to
Well, I smell Forum Retreat personally.
Yeah. Honestly, I know. Like, it's Kana's my fiance. It's her dream to go tour around England, and so I think we're going to plan for that in the fall.
If you're into weird shit, England is the hotbed of ancient magic, for lack of a better word, and I'm right into that. Remember, at 10 years old, I asked for ESP lessons, so. Like, it's weird that I never became a magician, like a bunny out of the hat sort of, like as a kid. I never, because I was so into it.
Your career could
have taken a different turn, right?
I'm sorry, Levi. I have another question. I'm going to keep going if that's
Go
okay.
for it.
Okay. So we've worked with all sorts of companies, and sometimes there's a storied example that's common with family businesses is, let's say the father or mother or both are selling the business or passing the business down to their kids, and they still see them as children.
Yes.
They're still thinking of them as like 14 years old or whatever it might be, immature, and no matter if they've grown as a person or not, and I'm going
Yes.
like this,
Yes.
the family is family. Like I often see, like, and I've experienced this myself, where I can choose who I hang around with outside of
Yes.
family. And as I grew, like my friends changed, and I still have some great old friends, but
Yeah.
I'm really conscious about making those choices. And with family, there's the example of the business owner passing the business down to the kids, and their perception of them changing, and how do you bring them along with your learning journey. But just from a family perspective, if you're growing and people see you a certain way, how can you reframe who you are to your family? I know that's a big question.
Well, no, so go back to the talk we had about Microsoft 95. Okay, so that's individual programming, and that's why when you try to run a program from 30 years ago, it's not appropriate anymore. Well, a family, if you think about it, is a higher level. It's not an individual, but it's still it's like an organism in itself, right? And so it has its own patterns. Okay. Now, the difference in a family is there's usually more than one meat suit involved. And so that's where we get conflicting agendas, if you will, because not everybody wants to change. And so I think you probably saw the slide because I put it usually in everything. If someone doesn't want to change, there's nothing you can do to change them. Okay. But if someone wants to change, there's nothing you can do to stop them. So if you as an individual in the family are changing because you want to change and grow and evolve, and so the first step is to make sure that the family has a shared set of values that everybody agrees to live by. And so say one of them is growth. Well, if you're growing and they're not, then you can call them out on the values, and you can just kind of manage it according to the values. Not everybody does that. And so the only other way to do it is when you change, they don't change. And they don't have to change because it's not your job to change them. You're not the change police. If someone doesn't want to change, they don't want to change. However, what we do is we inadvertently make it easy for people to not change. Okay? Instead of making it hard for them to not change. Because if you made it so that it was more uncomfortable for them to not change than to change, then they would change of their own volition. It would have nothing to do with you. So what happens though in families is we try to play the role while we're changing, and then we somehow blame them for not, accepting our changes. And so if you've ever seen any of the quotes that are, these are famous quotes like, you're not everybody's cup of tea because you're whiskey. Or, the one I recently saw, which I loved, which is, if you're an ocean, be an ocean. Don't be a pond because other people can't swim.
Right.
I love that.
Right?
It's funny, like I didn't even think of this until you were talking about it, but I have some close family that was like, they change who they are when they go back to meet with family. And I was like, and I have a little bit different relationships. I was like, oh, why would I? I want to make sure that we keep the peace of that artificial harmony. And I'm like, why? I don't understand.
Higher value.
But I like that idea of putting on a mask.
So it's actually really prevalent in the family dynamic. And when you have, it's the same with, so if it's just you and your growth and your development and your business, and it's one person, and you've done all the systemization and scaling and the proper structure, then the growth will be constrained by your own personal growth. The business will only grow to your capacity that you understand it to be able to grow to. As soon as you have partners, it's now constrained by both, and it will only grow according to the lowest common denominator, by the way. And you have that dynamic, that partner dynamic is the same dynamic in an intimate relationship. So one of the systems I study is astrology, and the same house that houses the intimate relationship also houses the business partner. So not that you're having sex with your business partner, but the point is that the projective relationship between the two is similar. And so now you've got this, I have had a lot of private clients who I've worked with the two partners, and in all the instances I'm thinking of, they were men. They don't have to be, but they just were. So I worked with the two men to do breakthroughs to the co-CEOs or whatever they were, right? And then I would work with their intimate partners because that's how it always goes. They always, okay. So now I've worked with and what would be interesting going forward is if they were having trouble in their marriage, their business was doing really well. If they're having trouble in their business, their marriage was doing really well. And it was the balancing act of keeping both conscious. And it's work, right? And it's shattering patterns, and it takes effort, and it takes desire, because it's way easier to keep things the same. Well, a family is 3 meat suits, 4 meat suits, 5, and so now you have all the interplay going on, and so imagine if you and your brother have a pattern that you created in the 25 years ago, and it's never changed, or you and your mom, or whatever. And so it requires breaking it. Okay? Now, that's the goo phase. It's not comfortable. And it often comes with all kinds of crap. And so that's why anybody who's out there doing dynamic work with families or business family coaching or whatever, their work it's systematic, and it's more complex than one-on-one. Now, you could just do a breakthrough with every single person. That would work. But they all have to want it.
Yeah.
Like, I turn away more clients than I take because I screen for desire and willingness. And most people don't really want it. They want to want it. And that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Right.
This is a couple of years now, but it's similar but different. But so I invest a lot of time and energy into personal, professional development, peer groups, conferences, reading, and my wife told me it was a moment because she's also smart, executive, etc. She does not want to do the personal development. She's not as interested.
No, I don't want it, right?
But then she said the words to me one day, and she's like, "Just so that you know, your constant effort and investment," and she didn't use that word, but like, you're always trying to improve. All I hear is that you're not satisfied or content with what you have today. And that hit like a ton of bricks, because I was doing there was a while there I was doing 20 days a month not in the house between work and my own personal stuff. And it was like, yeah, no, but I am. But then that drive, where does the ambition and contentment live together?
Only you can answer that.
And it's been a couple of years. I think about it. I think at least thinking about it is part of the solution. I don't really have any other answer. But
well, if you're doing something in order to make what you don't want go away, it's probably not something you should be doing.
Yeah,
but
and I think I enjoy the process.
I love why are you going to
the way
Oxford?
She perceives.
Exactly. But that's because of the way she perceives reality, not the way you do. Why am I going to Oxford? Honestly, I'm going to Oxford to learn. I want to have a big, I want to tell you it's because I need this or want that or whatever. And you don't value this, or you value why are you going there? Why do you need another degree? I don't know. I don't. But I want to go and push myself, and for the sake of pushing myself. That's actually why I want to do it. Yeah. There is no agenda. I'm not trying to fix anything, right? And so, and typically, I always say to I'm not the change police. People think that I think that everyone needs to change. I do not. And sometimes I come across as callous, right? Because I look at the world and I go, I don't think there's anything wrong. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, here's the thing. It's not for me to tell people how to live. I always ask, how's it working for you? Now, if you say to me, it's not working for me, oh my God, I will go hell and high water to help you change it. But I will never impose on you that you should change anything. And people say, well, clearly they're suffering. Well, no, if humans are suffering, they tend to take their foot out of the fire, right? So what I know about humans is, if I light your leg on fire, you're going to put it out because that's fire. But if I light your leg on fire and before you put it out, somebody comes along and cooks you dinner and does your laundry because your leg's on fire, then you're like, my leg's on fire and that does hurt, but this is a pretty sweet deal. So I'm just going to let it burn a little bit, see if I can manage it, do some executive functioning around it, right? And I'm going to get my dinner made and my laundry done, and then all I got to do is sustain a little bit of manageable fire pain. Okay? So So humans are kind of the same in that construct. Humans are very different, obviously, in their individual expressions. And so if someone wants to change, you literally can't stop them. And that's a family dynamic issue that comes up, right? Child wants to change, parents don't want them. You know, like my son is just graduated from university, and he's in that phase in his life, wants to travel the world, whatever. Free spirit. That's great. Like, you do you. And in order to leave us, because we're delightful, right? We are really nice people. We got a very comfortable house and environment, great life. And in order to leave this, you've got to pretty much demonize the shit out of it, right? And so that's a natural progression. And so as kids leave home when they're 18 and 20, and even when they're 3 years old or whatever, they go through these periods where they have to reject the group in order to develop their individual selves. That's like a natural, if they don't do it, if they don't do that, they'll never leave. They'll never be independent, okay? So I always say to my young people, it's not just my son and my daughter or my friends' kids, I always say, like, don't confuse the natural, you have to vilify, you have to find something and go, that's shit, I'm out of here, right? So that you'll have the courage to leave and go start your own clan and do your own thing. Don't confuse that with the state, the actual state of the deep loving and support of your actual family. Those two things are very different. Right. And so go fly, be free, but I'm here. Like, don't worry, I'm still here. You can, make it because I'm lame ass and I don't know what a meme is or whatever. But it's not for me to impose my values on you. But when kids are leaving home, or even when they're becoming 3-year-olds, right, and they're trying to differentiate their individuality, they're going to demonize the place so that they can have the guts to do it. Well, that's what I did when I left the corporate world. I had to demonize it so that I have the guts to leap. And then when I leapt, I had the functioning ability to be able to adapt myself to survive, and to survive like my first book was called The Secret of Successful Failing. It wasn't, hey, look at how great I am standing on top of this mountain. It was like, I'm here, it's not on my face, and I'm still standing because I'm a honey badger, right? So, like, sure, it looks good on paper, but it's not without its adaptation.
Somebody asked me a really good question this weekend, and what you were saying.
What was it?
Instead of saying the typical, "Oh, how have you been? How are you?" He sat back and he said, "Oh, are things going your way?" And I was like, "Whoa." You're going to have to let me sit for a second.
Not today.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, that's my new, that's going to be my new icebreaker at any event. Are things going your way lately? And like, it just got me thinking, like, I actually don't know right now. Right. It got me spiraling.
What is my way? Yeah. Yeah. Levi, what's some of the learning that you've loved? You sound like you were an obsessive learner at one point. What's some of the greatest things that you learned?
I'm a really big learner, languages, communication, cultures. So I was a linguistics and language major.
Sweet.
One of my biggest things is I don't know. This is coming from your comment about I'm not gonna be able to get all these bits of information. Is I don't, unless I make some dramatic changes, I'm never gonna learn another language.
Even with Duolingo?
Well, but I know what it takes to learn a language. Yeah. And I need to carve out the time, and I believe you have to have immersion for a part of it. And I studied 3 years of Japanese and 5 years of German and 4 years of Spanish, like at a university level, and then came away. And because I didn't anchor, but German, French, and English, I moved to those countries and worked in there for a year or two.
Gotcha. I'm learning Latin. What do you recommend I do?
Not find any valid use for it.
Move to ancient Rome. How do I immerse myself? You know what? Ironically, the one place on earth where there's like a really active Latin club is Oxford, and they speak in Latin.
Well, I mean, learning Latin is kind of the basis and root language for a lot of others, so it's fascinating. But for me, it's the actual how things are done. The extensive 3 and 4 months in other countries, and I'm a chef by trade, so I get really, really deep into the reasons why food have changed because of the way that the environment, spicy food from India is
Sure.
because no refrigeration, warm temperatures. Like you
Right.
can, French cuisine is built off very, very poor constraints. Like it's,
Sure. Sure.
um, anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, so we do a lot of that, but the interpersonal stuff. So like I'm doing a change management certification this weekend because I'm just fascinated by that type of thing. Yeah, I mean, I used to like so the peer groups you've spoken for EO. I got the opportunity post business failure. There's a similar but different organization called the Wallace McCain Institute, which is
Cool.
it's a peer group. It's just Atlantic Canadian. It's modeled after YPO,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I got they needed people to moderate, facilitate, and like manage those programs. And so 5 years post business failure, I went in, you
Sweet.
know, still nursing my own scars from my
Yeah.
own failure, but also being able to work with like groups of 16 to 18 people in their own funk, and that exposure and the whole business becomes that like we live under the hood of
Yeah.
other people's organizations and challenges, and so
Well,
it's a constant learning.
and those groups, yeah. So I speak EO, YPO, Tech, WPO, blah blah blah. I call them the
Yeah,
O's. They're all the same
yeah,
and different in their execution, different in their values, different in their flavors.
yeah,
But the value comes from not reinventing the wheel, like learning from someone else's experience,
yeah,
right? So but even just when you talk about like your fail, so the real leap is when you understand that the failure was the greatest thing that's ever happened. So it's not a scar, it's not something to nurse. In fact, probably shaved 10, 20, 30 years
yeah,
off your learning curve, right? It just in our culture is like, think about winning. So if you've ever played hockey or whatever, just think about winning, right? What did you learn from it? Jack shit. Like literally nothing. Okay? And so, but think about losing. I think about the things that I lost, right? The election in second year university, the race that I lost. Do you know what? Like, I think about them and I think, God, those things were good. Like I came in last place in grade 8 in the 1500-meter run. Last place. And it was even worse because the boy I liked was kind of mock cheering for me, in grade 8. I was 13 or whatever. I came in last place and I didn't die. And it taught me a resilience. So now when I go to do things, like, dude, if you can survive coming in last place when you're 13 in front of the boy that you like, probably you can survive trying something there, and there, and there, right?
yeah.
So it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to you. It's just we don't we don't like putting our hand on the stove. It burns, right? So we've come to associate pain bad, but pain's just a signal that you're exceeding your limit of tolerance, and in a functioning environment that might mean you should stop, but it probably means you should develop some sort of function to be able to handle it. Well, in that case, then anytime you've fallen flat on your face has been triumphant. The only failure really is to let it beat you, right? And so it's like fall down 7, get up 8. And I am the queen of that.
I've had a lot of conversations around this, and because once you've gone through this, and it was very public, it was in the news. You still Google my face, and the face of me from that article still comes up.
Shocking.
And I guess where I differ a little bit is I definitely learned, and I think that I feel like I can deal with almost like I don't know what would happen, then I'd be like I can't handle that now that I've
Right.
gone through some of the stuff I've gone through, especially from a business and entrepreneurship perspective. But I keep the F with a capital, the failure with a capital F, and I own it. And I don't want to I don't want to have language that mitigates the true understanding of that word, because in that specific situation, it wasn't just me that got hurt.
Sure.
And so going forward, when I think about it, is like I can be my own tolerance and my own ability to manage and my own way to learn. Like I can think, but like I wasn't going into that first business aware of the possible consequences on others when I fail. And so, like, I had vendors, like, I didn't really care about the banks, but I had suppliers, because I had a local food grocery company. So I had 170 family farms that I left hanging on. And then the community and all that stuff, like, and the staff. And
But why do you assume that was bad for them? Because it gave them an opportunity to figure out who they were.
yeah, I mean, it's probably a longer discussion. I think that it
Sure.
had some really
I'm
open
not saying people
conversation.
didn't get hurt. It wasn't a shit show.
Yeah.
I get all that, but if you made amends, like you seem to have remorse, and you made amends, that's all you can do. Can't undo the past, and it's certainly not going to prevent you from failing in the future. But if you learn from it, and then you learn from it. But like, it's this illusion, like, so take it to a parenting conversation so that it's not so in your face. So we think that if we create these environments where our kids never fail, that'll be somehow better for them. It's 100% wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because the safest they're ever going to be is in a family environment or in a school that cares about them, where they should be taking risks, where they should actually push past their limit. They should actually disastrously fall flat on their faces, and then have somebody there watching, seeing what they do, and then if they say, I'm hurt too much, and then have I'm here to console you, because sometimes if it hurts too much, sometimes you need a shoulder to cry on. But if we create failureless environments, they never ever know what they can do, ever.
Yeah.
Ever. And then we have adults, and at some point the parents aren't around anymore, and the world doesn't give a shit as much, right? So think of the guy who sunk Barron's Bank. Like, wouldn't it have been better if he came last in a race and been allowed to come last? But think about the way we live right now. I watch, my nieces and nephews are younger than I am, so I watch them in environments where the parents are literally going to town on the teacher for failing, or whatever. And it's like, okay, all right. We could also hold that kid accountable and maybe teach them something, right? So, So if you did it on purpose, if you were some sort of psycho-sociopath, I'd be like, okay, you got issues. But to have remorse and to make amends, like, there's a really good children's book that might, help you in going forward. It's called The Little Soul in the Sun. It's a kid's book. And it might help you understand that you aren't here to make everybody more comfortable. That's not to say you go out and poke people in the eyes with forks, okay? But it's not your job to make yourself a certain way so that everyone else feels less uncomfortable. Your job is to be fully who you are, and if you accidentally step on someone's toes in the process, you say, oh, I'm sorry I stepped on your toes. I didn't mean to hurt you. And then the rest of it, you're out. You're not responsible for the world. That's a lot of weight to carry. You can carry it, but I'm just, it's not so, and it won't prevent you from doing it in the future. But if you have the knowledge that you got from it, it could be great.
Mm-hmm.
Think about Steve Jobs, right? Hello, we write books about. He was fired from the company he founded because he was, he fucked up so badly, right? And yet that turned him into who he ended up becoming. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can't.
What's that book called again? The kid's book?
The Little Soul in the Sun. It's a kid's book. It's the guy who wrote Conversations with God, Neil Donald Walsh. He wrote a kid's book. It's not very long, but it basically, if you had, wanted a parable for how to explain to kids why people do mean things, why do people do mean things? Why do bad things happen to good people? You read it, and I'm not saying it's true, it's a story, but the metaphor is pretty rich, and there's an obvious metaphor, and then there's the metaphor for people who are leaders, which is, you don't intend to hurt people, but you do. You just do, because that's the nature of reality. Clean up your mess, make amends, move on. Because you don't know what it is that the other person is contracted to learn. They are here to grow and learn too. Whether it's not for you to change and learn them, that's not your job. But you might be the catalyst, right?
Mm-hmm.
I first gave this little speech here when one of my friends didn't want to break up with his girlfriend 20, 30 years ago. He's like, I can't do that to her. I was like, what are you talking about? She won't be able to handle it. I was like, dude, she will. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to quit Procter and Gamble for months. I toiled. Oh my God, I can't do it. They won't be able. Like I'm so important. And I was like, and one of my friends was like, you really don't think they can get on without you? Right? Like but it was a real thing. And shockingly, somehow they've paid dividends since the day I quit. I don't know how they're doing it without me.
Right.
But it was a real thing. I was like really not quitting at the time because I was sincerely worried that it was my responsibility to carry that burden.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
And maybe you have an opinion, maybe you don't. One of the things we do is we help organizations and people, but mostly around organizations, adopt tools, of which right now generative AI is a big one of those tools. And I've been working on these workshops in organizations, and part of it is bringing up everybody's understanding so we can have a conversation. Part of it is aligning on like what they're going to do, and there's a lot of like we need everybody to at least have the conversation around the ethics and the evils and the goods and stuff.
100%.
But then the one I've been hearing lately is more and more, especially youth, and I don't know where youth begins in this context, but they're using ChatGPT or equivalent to have the coaching, counseling conversations that like we're talking about it that are in books, and they're not like when I'm talking to them now, I don't know if there's anything that's going to pull them to read something. They're having it as an interactive conversation. And I was just wondering what you thought about that and where that's going.
Well, who programs AI? That's it. Mic drop. So humans haven't been able to figure out their own morality. And we're trying to have an ethics and moral conversation about AI, but it's programmed by humans. So, Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I use AI, and I like admonish it, sometimes I get total bullshit. Like I was like, I'm looking for retirement homes in Windsor that have kitchens in the suites. It's a pretty straightforward question. And it gave me the list of 2 places that don't exist and a place in Ohio. And I said, I was looking at Windsor. Oh, I'm so sorry. And these places don't exist. Oh, my bad. So I'm just going to say this straight up. That's a bad idea, using AI to get coaching.
And so I totally get that. I guess the challenge I'm having this conversation is that the people asking those personal, reflective, emotional questions, the stuff coming back at them is a lot harder to understand as BS. It's harder to fact check.
For sure.
And so like it's just like how do I aside from just giving like here's the red light caution, don't. Because internally, even in companies, they're now using it like as part of their HR experience, and it's like that's scary.
Yeah, well, these same ding-dongs use voice-activated customer service phone lines, not understanding that 38% of rapport is through voice rapport, and the machine can't replicate it, which is why anybody who gets an IVR that says, like, tell me what you... They want to throw the phone through the wall by the time they're through to the human, but then they have a policy that says, don't be an asshole. But, like, I want to start with a policy with, I'm not going to use your stupid IVR because it's not a human.
Yeah.
Right?
I've used it, like, I'll hop in a car and talk through things with chat on the voice thing on my Bluetooth, and, you know, not all great, but sometimes, you know, it's great to just talk through things. And I didn't know that, Levi, that some of that stuff's been coming up. But yeah, I've had a couple little seemingly good breakthroughs on those.
But you know, let's be honest, Levi. The information coming out of most coaches' mouths is bullshit too. So it's no more or less bullshit. It's just that my ability to spot the error is easier based on from where I sit. But the solution here is to have better critical faculty, better critical thinking skills, like the kind we get in school.
Some do.
Okay, but no, that, like, I'm being very, very sarcastic. So we've eliminated that because we can't give anybody anything other than a green light on their report card or whatever the frick we're doing now. Like, you know what? When you got a 52 in whatever spelling, you knew you weren't good in spelling and you either improved it or you rejected it, but at least you knew. Now you get a yellow light. What does that mean? Like, so we've gone insane in terms of we've stopped teaching people how to think. Now you're a linguist. Linguistics is made up of rules. Okay? So you want to mess with people's ability to think critically? Change the rules of their language. Make it okay to violate grammatical rule, and you've just obliterated their ability to think critically. So
I like stirring the pot in these conversations. I have one for vegans, I have one for the devoutly religious, and I have one for the grammar language. Because in languages you learn the rules. In linguistics you learn that if somebody understands what you're saying, it's okay for language.
100%.
And so the person who corrects my grammar is like, let's have a conversation.
But for communication, 100%. If I knew if you go, me, coffee now, fine, I got it, give you a coffee. But that doesn't, that violates the rules in the sense that the world is made up of information, and the information flows through structured pathways. And if those pathways, if those structures cease to exist, then it's just chaotic, unorganized information. And what grammar gives us is the organized information. Okay, so Pythagoras, who, and stop me if you know this, was a mathematician, but he was a philosopher. Okay, some people say Pythagoras, whatever floats your boat. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. But he used math to prove his philosophy. So he didn't come out thinking, I want to come up with a triangle theorem. He was trying to say to people, rhetoric, or your opinion, or your belief. Okay, so I teach this in an NLP class. So your beliefs are rhetoric. They're not fact. They're rhetoric. Okay, because of this, it's not fact. It's 126 bits out of 2 million. It's not fact. But it's rhetoric. How you arrive at your rhetoric is you combine the data in some sort of logic. So you take the data and you run it through some sort of logic sequence, and then you come up with the rhetoric. Okay, so I'll give you an example. When my son was really little, he used to get these nosebleeds all the time, and he used to freak out. And the first time it happened, of course, right, like blood everywhere, a kid comes running into your room in the middle of the night, looks like a crime scene. And so everybody's freaking out, and we're just trying to unfreak out. And so, hugs, cuddles, freezies, pinch the nose, whatever. So this goes on months on end, and every time he's screaming, and every time we do the thing and do the thing and do the thing. And so he's sitting there coloring one day during the day, and I go, why do you freak out? Like it's been months now. I get the first one or the second one, but seriously, dude, it doesn't hurt. Like, why are you freaking out? And he was like 4 or 5 tops, okay? And he goes, Mom, love is in my heart. That's what you tell me. And, he goes to Montessori school. And I learned that my heart pumps my blood. And so I'm scared that I'm losing all my love. And I was like, holy shit. Wow. Like, try that on. If you thought that, what would you think when you cut yourself? You would be like, I gotta get this to stop. I'm losing all my. You'd freak out. It made complete sense. Unfortunately, it was an error. True, your love is in your heart area, chakra, whatever, energetically, but it's not physically in your heart. So the data was screwed up, and your heart does pump your blood. And then he logically connected love, heart, pump, love, bleed, love, out. So his logic was fairly sound, but his data was corrupted. And so his rhetoric was false. Well, that's how beliefs are formed. And so what I do is I either examine their data or I examine their logic, and typically one or the two fail, and then it fails, right? I'm not a linguist like you, but I know how to chop up sentences to test them in the Cartesian coordinates, right? I am a loser, whatever. I can chop that up into 2 pieces and test all 4 quadrants. And people are, what do you mean test? Okay, well, I see a ghost. Let's chop that up into 2 quadrants. I see / a ghost. All right, I see a ghost. Well, fine. Not I see a ghost. Do you see a ghost? No. So you don't, so not I, that's I. So you're not I. Do you see a ghost? No, there's no ghost. It fails immediately, which means the rhetoric failed somewhere. So you look to the data or the logic. Now, if we stop learning logic, and grammar is the logic of words, then we lose the ability to deconstruct our rhetoric. That's different than can we communicate? Monkeys can communicate.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, that like, I see it in, I'll keep going to food because that's my real background is like, when you understand the rules and the theory so well that you no longer have to follow the rules.
Right.
But a lot of people aren't getting there yet, especially when it comes to language. Like
and they're
the critical
skipping it.
thinking and
And we don't. So we say misinformation, but we don't know what that means. Like I go, where do you get your data? Chat GPT. Well, like, dude, like right out of the gate, that's not a credible source, right? I went to you guys were Canadian, so I went to Newfoundland years ago, and they have the Flat Earth Coffee Company, and I thought that was cute. Flat Earth Coffee, ha ha ha. We're on the ferry to Fogo Island drinking Flat Earth coffee. And we get to Fogo Island, we do a hike, and there's a sign, like a municipality sign, like not like a taped sign, like a sign at the top of this cliff, and it said, "Caution, you're about to fall off one of the 4 corners of the flat Earth." And I was like, what the hell is it? Okay, now we have something getting my attention. And so then I saw a sign, the Flat Earth Coffee Company and Museum, and I was like, okay. Next day, pouring rain, I'm like, that's it. So we go to this museum, okay? And I walk in, I'm like, okay, what's going on? And sure, there they are behind the coffee cafe thing. And they don't look like they're from Fogo Island. They look urban. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, what's up? And they're like, oh, hi, my name's so-and-so and so-and-so, and we're students at the University of Waterloo. And I'm like, what? Why are you here at the end of the earth? She said, oh, this is one of the most coveted co-op positions for philosophy students. And I was like, why? And she goes, well, first of all, it's not a conspiracy theory place. That's not what this is about. I go, okay, well, what's the deal? And she goes, how do you know the earth is round? And I said, and it was like, oh, I know this is a trick question, right? So I'm like running through, okay, how do I know? How do I know? No. I said, I've seen pictures. She goes, did you take them? I said, no. She goes, welcome to our museum. I was like, son of a bitch. And I spent the entire day in this museum, okay, challenging how you know. Right? Now, the truth is you don't. You can't. Right? And so then what do? Well, you proceed to act knowing you don't know, but you're doing the best you can with what you got. Well, that's all anybody can do. But that's not all there is. It's just the best you can with what you got. And if you come to a point in your life where you want something else, you've got to learn to do a different best you can with what you got. You've got to learn to do a different program. And so that's why I can honestly say I'm not trying to impose my way. I have opinions, but I also know that they change over time and with new information. As soon as I get a piece of new information, that is brand new information. It changes everything, right? Do you have an Instant Pot?
Yeah.
I refuse.
Have you ever seen the video where you put the lid thingy in the thingy? When I was like, oh my God, I've been putting my lid on the counter. There's a slot.
Hangs on the side. Even I know. I don't even have one, Colby.
Yeah. But like for years I would say, God, there's got to be a better way to do this. And and then I saw the video and I was like, and I never did it that way again. Like I never not used the little slot again, but I didn't know it was there.
Yeah. Right?
So, and I know that's a stupid thing to talk about, but that's how fast, when new information comes, either new data or fixed logic, like if your logic's flawed, your rhetoric changes immediately, and it never goes back because you can't unlearn what you know.
Can't unlearn what you know. You look like you're sitting on something, Colby.
A little bit, like.
What are you not saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. What did he not call you?
If you could install
Yeah.
an idea or a belief into a person's mind, is there things that you found more valuable over time in your work that would be valuable for us and other people who might be listening?
I could say something trite like you could do anything, and that would be true. Okay, it is true. There's nothing more powerful than the power you have within you. However, what I've learned over the years of working with individuals is that's not necessarily the beliefs that they adopt in the breakthrough. So it's a version of that. So yes, you could do anything, right? That's true. Everything you need is already inside of you, like a little seed, but it has to be activated. And typically it's the failures that activate, by the way. However, the way that you express that belief for one person could be, I am strong, or it could be, I am smart, or it could be the one belief that they've never believed. That's a version of you could do anything, but it's personal. So when I do a breakthrough with someone, it's not like everybody comes out with the same beliefs. They come out with different beliefs based on their constructs, based on their meat suit, their desires, their values, their, whatever their model of reality is. But what we've done is taken out the ones that don't work anymore, because while they might have protected you in the past, they aren't working anymore. And then the new one or the authentic one emerges, but it's not like a common theme across every client. So it's not like every client comes out with, I can do it, I'm loved, or whatever. They come out with the things they needed to remember about themselves that were true that they forgot when they were busy forgetting. So it's typically emerges when the thing you're believing doesn't work for you anymore. I'm running a marathon. It's 2004. I have 2 babies, so I'm pretty good. You said, I see you on LinkedIn. You're there. Yeah, up until I had my kids, I pretty much, I would win only because I wouldn't leave the court, right? And so I had 2 babies really close together, and that broke me. I was not thriving. There was no executive functioning. And I said to my husband, I got to do something here. So he's like, okay. And I said, well, if I think this is impossible, and I think I'm making that up, I'll do something else that's impossible. And if I do it, then that'll break the boundary on the definition. He's like, okay, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to run a marathon. He was like, oh, God, please no, right? Please no. Because I'd run a half marathon a couple of years ago, and it nearly broke my knees. And he was like, please no. And I was like, no, I'm doing it. So I'm a really slow runner. And the long story of this is that I couldn't even find a running group that ran slow enough, because they had walkers, but I didn't want to walk, I wanted to run. So I trained, and the whole training is you wouldn't believe me if I told you. So there I am at my marathon in San Francisco, which is a terrible place to do your first marathon, okay? Terrible. But it was sponsored by Tiffany's, and at the end when you get the thing, this was a silver chain with a little silver Tiffany's medal with a guy. It was a women's marathon, know your audience. So it was a guy, white gloves, tails, a silver platter, 2 blue Tiffany box. That'll get anybody across the finish line. So I'm running this thing, and I've trained for it and whatever, and I'm running. And around mile 16, so there were 9 miles left. And miles sounds like kilometers, but they're not. 9 miles is 15K.
Write that one down.
Right? Yeah. So I hit the wall, and it was bad. And my husband had just dropped, he was biking around, and I was like, I'm kicking this race's ass. And I'm running up this hill. And as I'm running up this hill, the wheels start to fall off, right? And I get to the top, and I am frozen solid. Every muscle in my body is seized, okay? I'm crying and snot stripping. I'm realizing it's 9 miles. 9 miles, I can't go 9 centimeters, right? I am frozen in the ground. But for some reason, my husband's there. And he's like, what the hell? And I'm thinking, oh my God, they're going to have to take me off of one of those things, and the whole thing, okay? I am just in it, just like whatever. And my husband's not saying a word. and he's behind me, and I had to raise money for team in training, and so there's like 50 names on my shirt, and he's reading people's names, and he's like, "Who's so and so?" I worked with her at P&G. Who's this person? Doesn't she work for us? Yeah, she gave you $100. Yeah, doesn't she in school? Yeah. So it was like all these names, and then it hit me like a cosmic 2x4. Oh my God, they all think I can do this. My mom thinks I can do this. My dad, everybody thinks they all gave me this money. And my husband thinks that he's biking all over San Francisco. My friends are looking after our 2 babies with their 2 babies at the finish line with big signs. There's only one person that it's got to be me. Like, I'm the only one here who doesn't think I can do this.
Wow.
It was like right there, like a chalkboard. And I was like, well, that doesn't work. I literally like, nope, I do not accept that. I'm doing this. And the minute that transaction happened, I'm not making this up, you can ask my husband, it was like an unpause, and everything whooshed out of me. My muscles were fine, I could move, I could walk, I wasn't in pain. This person, came off the side with a gel. You look like you need a gel. I was like, where the hell have you been? Like, super weird. And I was like, all right. So I gave my husband my watch and all my timing. And I said, I'm finishing this race. He's like, I'm like, 100%. Like, I got this. And so I finished. And when you do a marathon, I don't know, have you guys ever run a marathon?
Yes.
The motivational speaker said there's a
Colby's still limping from it, I think.
Well, the motivational speaker said there'll be a point in the race where you'll know for sure you're going to finish. Some people, that's the beginning. Okay. So I get about 800 meters from this 42,200 meter race. So it's along the stretch in San Francisco. And it dawns on me, I'm finishing. If there's only 800 meters left, and I know I can physically tell there's enough gas in the tank. So I start sprinting, okay? Like I was on the high school track team, remember? I wasn't a good long distance runner, but I was well trained. And so I start sprinting, and my girlfriend, she said, it looked like Flojo was winning the Olympics. Your form was perfect. And I came across the finish line 6 hours and 9 minutes above my head, okay? Got my Tiffany's thing, took a few photos, went and had an ice bath, done. And I hit the wall. Ask my husband, I could not move, not a muscle. Every muscle was seized by lactic. I was done. And then the belief came to the surface because there was nothing else to focus on. I couldn't move. And then that was it, gone. And so now when hard things happen and I hit the proverbial walls, this belief of you can figure this out, you got this, comes to the surface. And then somehow I do. Now, it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for that thing. And it was very unpleasant. Okay? So, how do you replace a belief? So what I tried to do is make it easier for people than that. But it's the same process. You have to uncover it, eliminate it, replace it.
Mm-hmm. Such a good answer.
Well,
that's such a good
bottom line, you can do anything. Doctors, you can do anything. But your disbelief about that doesn't make it less true.
I always follow up is you can do anything. You probably shouldn't do everything.
Right. And I always say in my classes, anything is possible. I sound like a Pollyanna, right? Anything is possible. In the quantum field, literally anything is possible. But not everything is probable. What's probable? The things that are programmed. Yeah. Right? The ruts. You guys toboggan, right?
Yeah.
Have the know.
So great snow, let's say it snows a meter overnight and you're the first one to the hill. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? You got a toboggan, there's a meter deep of snow, you put it down at the top. It's terrible.
Yeah. You don't
Why?
want to go anywhere.
Because you're like, right? Yeah. And then you do it again and again and again. But by the 50th time, you could shoot yourself right into the lake.
Yeah.
If you if you get it to melt a little bit and freeze a little bit and get like a little bobsled track, right? And it's super unsafe, right? And then that's the track you're going to use, even if the whole hill is covered in snow and pristine and ready to go. And so that's what our habits are like, right? The first time and the second time, but then, 15 years later, that track is like greased lightning.
Yeah.
That's a great analogy.
It's only Canadians. It's only for
Yeah,
Canadians.
it's very
And
contextual.
even you were sketchy. You were like, I don't know. It sounds good. No, it's not. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're sweating.
Because I think you asked toboggan, and I don't toboggan, I tube. So I was
Ah.
like, oh yeah, I
Oh
definitely.
yeah, you sit on top.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but you got to cut a rut for a toboggan.
Gina,
Well, I think that story and analogy is a pretty good.
I think so too. I think so too. Like that was a perfect answer. And,
Perfect.
I've also hit that wall. I hit that wall at 32 kilometers, and
Feels good, eh?
I didn't know what people were talking about because I didn't train into that distance, so I just didn't believe it and didn't know what they were talking about. But anyway, it's real. It's there.
Oh, it's real, but it's also not real.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, true
what
enough.
I did was inexplicable. It sounds superhuman. It wasn't superhuman, but it was alter human. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like I didn't need those resources until I got to the place where there was no other option.
Yeah.
Right? Up until that point in my life, anytime it got hard, maybe I was just powering through,
Yeah.
Instead of actually changing the belief. And so until you need the resources, you won't concoct the incident to evoke them.
Yeah.
So, but that's what the failure is. It's evoking a power you didn't even know you had. But you have it because I said so. See, that's what I'm going to use Oxford for because I said so. I went to Oxford. I said so.
And you'll get the doctor.
Yeah, Dr. Gina. I mean, I've been waiting for that for a long time.
Sounds good.
My brother has a PhD, and it's always bothered me. This is the truth, probably, that he has a PhD and I don't. So
Right. The truth comes out.
End
Well,
of the
Dr.
day-
Gina sounds great.
right? Yeah, it sounds like a sex therapist, really.
There's always a career change at any point because you can do
Who has
it.
recently departed us, and
Anything.
that's a kind of Canadian national treasure. So
Right.
maybe there's a replacement.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good endpoint. I mean, you can keep talking, but after some of these stories, I feel like you get to a point where you get so good, and then you'll just start diluting it if you go longer.
Yeah. No, but I just want to make sure this was the longest podcast you've ever done. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I think you hit it by 1 minute.
When you said 2 hours, like, no, we're still going over 2 hours. I 100% need to win that.
I
I
think
can't
that's
wait
what
to see the show notes. This
we'll
is great.
promote it like that as well. It's
Yeah, longest ever.
ever.
Yeah. Dare you?
Yeah, when we did scavenger hunts, we broke the Guinness Book one year.
wow.
And I say we, it's really all Andrew. But it's been smashed multiple times since. But we were on our world tour with our kids where our rule was we couldn't leave each other. And so we were traveling for a year, and the event was taking place in the States, but we were in Japan. And he was like, well, I got to go, and I got to go. And I was like, this is what the scaling's for. Like, this is what the replication's for. So we actually had this huge Guinness Book breaking event. We weren't even there,
Wow.
right? So, we like records.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yes,
That's
thank you, Gina.
Thanks for having me, you guys. Appreciate it.
Appreciate your time.
You can do anything.
I love it.
This episode of Built to Last is brought to you by Ironhouse Pro, your behind-the-scenes partner in building organizations designed to thrive. We specialize in solving the big challenges, the small annoyances, and everything in between. So while you're out there dreaming big, we're here making sure your systems, processes, and people are ready for tomorrow. Ironhouse Pro, driven to create lasting organizations. Learn more at ironhousepro.com.